The blender. The blender is one of the biggest pieces of machinery that you will find behind your bar, and it is used to chop, puree and blend ingredients into a fine, smooth consistency that is perfect for smoothies, daiquiris and a number of blended cocktails. Usually, fresh fruits or vegetables are blended in a blender and then mixed with crushed ice and spirits or liqueurs. The result is a wonderful, slushy drink that is perfect on a hot summer's day. In this lesson, we will learn what a blender looks like, how to use it, and how to be safe around a blender. Let's begin with what a blender looks like. A blender is made up of three separate components. First, the base. The base is the piece at the bottom of a blender which holds the electrical motor that is used to blend the ingredients. Usually, you will find all the buttons that you need to operate the blender on the base. Secondly, the blender jar. This is what you put the ingredients that you are wanting to blend into. It has a blade at the bottom of it, which is attached to the motor when placed onto the base. This motor then rotates incredibly quickly when turned on. Finally, the lid. This is used to seal off the top of the blender jar and stops all the ingredients flying all over the place when the blender is turned on. Now let's take a look at how to use the blender. Using a blender is very easy. Step 1. Make sure that you have cleaned all the fruits and vegetables that you will be blending by removing their seeds, pips and skins, as these can be bitter when blended. Step 2. Remove the blender jug from the base and add all the ingredients into it. Step 3. Place the lid on top of the blender jug and cover the lid with a service cloth. The service cloth ensures that if any liquids do escape while blending, they will be caught by the service cloth. Step 4. Start the blender by giving it a quick pulse. Pulse is a short burst of power that will get the blade spinning and give a quick initial blend. Pulse the blender another 2 times. Step 5. Turn the blender onto its lowest setting and every 5 to 10 seconds move the blender up in speed until you have reached the maximum speed. This is the best way to get the perfectly smooth texture. You can leave the blender at its maximum speed for as long as is required. In other words, when your ingredients are at the correct consistency and texture. Step 6. Once you have finished blending, turn the blender off and remove the lid to check that you have blended all the ingredients well. If the blade has missed some of the ingredients, swirl the contents around in the jug with a wooden spoon to mix them up and blend again for a few seconds. Step 7. Turn off the power for the blender at its source and unplug it from the wall. Finally, Step 8. Remove the blending jug from its base and proceed to scoop what's inside the jug into your glasses over the bar mat. Do your best to avoid making contact with the blades when scooping, as this will blunt them over time. It is best to then clean the blender immediately after using it. Not only will this remove all the flavors from the ingredients that have just been inside the blender, but it will also mean that you have a blender which is ready to use for your next order. Because the blender is big and noisy, it is important to be careful when using it so that you don't annoy or distract your guests from whatever they may be doing. Make sure that you are aware of the noise that you are making when you are using it, especially when using it in an area with guests around. Finally, let's finish off with using a blender safely. Why do you think a blender has the potential to be dangerous? Take a moment to write your answer down. There are 2 answers to this question. Firstly, blenders are dangerous because of the blade which is found at the bottom of the jug. This blade will easily cut off a finger if you were to accidentally place your hand into the jug while the blender was on. Secondly, a blender is an electrical piece of equipment, and this means that you need to be extra aware of where all the cables for it are. A rule of blenders is to only ever fill the jug and empty it when it is off its base. This way, there is no way that the power can suddenly turn on. It is also a rule of blenders that the only type of ice that you may ever use in them is crushed ice. This is because crushed ice is softer than ice blocks, which are hard and will blunt the blades quickly. Finally, when adding ingredients into a blender or stirring its contents, do your best to avoid using a metal object, as it will blunt the blades when it comes into contact with them repeatedly. This is why we use a wooden spoon in step 6 of using a blender and not a metal spoon. Congratulations on finishing this lesson.